This is a nothing. Yes, did they play perfect? No, they still win. Yes.
What are you doing if the Celtics win the championship?
If the Celtics win championship, I might break my sobriety. I might act up.
We did it! You got him.
All the way.
Celtics versus Heat. Celtics in what?
4.
Celtics versus Knicks. Celtics in
4.
You got Celtics in 4? Hell yeah.
Use a vocab word from a couple years ago. It's mind-boggling.
That's it, DRG. Let's go. What do you think tonight?
You think I'm worried about the Warriors? I ain't worried about the
Let's go, baby. 18, baby. Load up the boat.
Why would you say that?
Because
I'm not. No,
recently he's putting up games like.
Above our head for the players.
Literally right now.
But I think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call.
You think right now
Rob,
it's still New York?
I do.
And when I think of the Celtics dynasty, honestly, one of the first names that comes to my mind is actually Brad Stevens.
How about that? 3-1. Woo! What's going on, everybody? We had a phenomenal day of basketball so far on this Sunday in April. Great slate. I don't know if you guys were watching all day. Griffin, I know you were busy handling down there up there, I should say, with Sea Dogs. Yeah. A couple great games. Celtics, they were able to make it another great game. 107-98 was your final score tonight from Orlando, guys. Before we talk about that, welcome back into the Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Show. I'm your host, Rob Haytayan. Join with me. I'm our two co-hosts. You guys know these guys. Seamus Zarlingo and Griffin Aldrich. Guys, the Celtics take a commanding 3-1 series lead over the Orlando Magic. Again, a 107-98 victory, guys. You know the drill here. Let's talk initial thoughts, reactions, and takeaways from a solid win. Again, a playoff win's going to be a solid win.
Yet again, Griffin. Welcome to the show. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start it off. I wanted to say, like last post-game show, I was talking about how this game 4 is a must-win for the Boston Celtics, and that they did so. I thought it was overall just it's been a game that you've expected all series long since game 1. I mean, it's been honestly just the same kind of outcome, if that makes sense. They've all been kind of close games except for that game 1. But, you know, they've been tough, battled games. I mean, you saw it later in the game with Tatum and Caldwell Pope getting into it, kind of just a rough, intense basketball game, which is a good thing. But at the same time, I don't know about you guys. We could talk about it later, but it scares me a little bit how hard the Celtics have been hit. And it scares me because there's been a lot of injuries and like just the Boston Celtics have been shaken up from this series. So we can get into that later. But overall, it's great to be up 3-1. A lot of the time that means that the series is over. I'm not going to say it's over yet because it's not over till it's over. But it's great to go back to TD Garden now up in the series 3-1. And I'm happy about it. Was it the best game ever? It was an interesting game. Magic kept, sliding back into it. But the Boston Celtics, you'll see it later in the lead tracker too, kind of commanded it from that second quarter on. Like they had the lead and they stuck with it. But overall, it was all right game, and I'm happy about it. Let's go Celtics. It's time for 19. That's my initial thoughts.
Well, yet again, tonight's game, another muck-it-up performance by the Orlando Magic, and just time after time, a physical game. There has not been one game in this series through 4 games that has not been 1,000% completely physical on both teams going at each other at different moments in the game. And we saw the same again tonight, and we shouldn't have expected anything different because this Orlando Magic team, they are taking every shot they can get at the Celtics right now. And Griffin, I completely agree with you. I'm a little worried about how banged up the Celtics are becoming in this series. And Drew Holiday, we talked about him last game. Didn't play tonight. He was out early on the injury report. Wasn't even a questionable, wasn't a doubtful, nothing. He was out last night. We knew that information last night that Drew Holiday was not going to play tonight. And he all of a sudden becomes a little bit of a question mark with his hamstring. We know hamstrings can be tricky. Now Drew Holiday sitting 2 straight playoff games. But just aside from Holiday, we see Kristaps Porzingis. There was a question of whether or not he went to the locker room. It turns out he went to the exercise bike. Still could be something to be monitoring there with Porzingis. Usually that's just some conditioning, but we'll have to see. Porzingis is always, regardless of if he has an injury or not, you have to be looking out for Porzingis. But then Brown and Tatum, they're just getting beat up in this series. And Tatum, he's taking on a huge volume right now, and he scored 37 points tonight, but he took 25 shots. Wasn't all that efficient with his shots. Now he did get to the free throw line a ton tonight. That is what made the difference within Jason Tatum's game. However, Jason Tatum, he's taken a lot of big blows out there. So is Jaylen Brown. And you notice Jason Tatum, he came up that wrist. Anthony Black hit that wrist again tonight. And in game one, obviously, it was KCP with the foul on the wrist. And then Jason Tatum falls on the wrist. But then tonight, Anthony Black swipes down on it. And Jason Tatum, for a second there, was like, uh-oh. I mean, he did it again. He did it again. It's not fully healthy, and he did it again. Well, he came back, hit 2 big free throws, and then he had a couple of clutch threes down the stretch as well. So still, Tatum, you want to be watching out for him, but he does look fine out there. That wrist does look comfortable when he's handling the ball and shooting the ball. It seems like he has all his strength there. But even Jaylen Brown, I mean, he had a dislocated finger last game. Dislocated finger. That is no joke. That's going to be something that's sore on Brown's ability to dribble and just in general on his hand. And you just see some important players in this series. The point is here, they're getting banged up. And that's what made game 3 so frustrating is the Celtics lose by 2. And they had an edge in that game up 10 at half. And they can't pull that game out. Now they have to play another physical game against this Magic team. And tonight they did it once again in game 4. And it was maybe, it could have been the most physical game out of all of them. And it felt like down the stretch, the Celtics, thankfully, they turned up their ability to run ahead of the Magic, and you see the 107-98 win. The Celtics, they finished this game on a 16-7 run near the end. However, for most of the contest, we'll see in the lead tracker here in a little bit, it was back and forth. I mean, the Celtics, it felt like the Magic were definitely playing from behind as they have for most of the series, but it's been the same themes. I mean, the Magic, they're creating themselves extra possessions. You look at the field goal attempt discrepancies tonight. That's what I keep looking at in this series because I keep making the point of the Orlando Magic. They have to create themselves extra opportunities in order to beat this Celtics team. They have to slow the pace of the game up, and they have to get out and transition themselves and get themselves extra opportunities off of Celtics turnovers and themselves easy buckets at the rim. But you see the field goal attempt discrepancy tonight, 88-78 in favor of the Magic. First of all, 2 of these teams, both of them, they're taking a low amount of field goal attempts in this series, period. But when you're doing that, the Celtics, they cannot let the Magic take 10 more shots than them. We thought it was bad last game when the Magic took 9 more shots than the Celtics. Well, how about tonight? 10 more shots for the Magic. And those type of things will definitely make the difference over time. When you're in a game, you see down the stretch, the margins are thin. There's not a lot of possessions. It's a slugfest. It's a physical game. Boston, they're certainly struggling on the offensive end of the floor. Thankfully, their defense has picked it up. And the Magic, you see, still not over 100 points in the series. 100 points exactly in game 2, but not over 100 in the entirety of these first 4 games for the Magic. But the Celtics, I'll say this right now, the offense does not look good against the Magic. Does not look good at all. And yet, hey, 3-1 series lead. Can't complain too much. A lot of people predicted the series would be over in 5. And that's what we're on the course for right now, going back to Boston for game 5. But the Celtics, they have to close out this series in Boston because you thought there for a second tied 91-91. The Magic, they actually had a chance in this game. And then all of a sudden you're looking at every single game in this series. And now you're comparing it again to the Pacers series last year. We're going, oh, the Pacers, they could be up 3-1. Instead, the Celtics, they advanced to the finals 4-0. That's how this series has gone a little bit, where you think about game 2, the way it ended down the stretch, and then this game tonight. The Magic were not too far from grabbing those games. Now, the Celtics were just superior, but the Magic not too far off. And within that, you see the Orlando Magic, they're now down 3-1, but they could easily be up 3-1 on the Celtics if the Celtics did not handle themselves down the stretch. But in terms of the entirety of the game, the Celtics certainly did enough shooting themselves in the foot in order for Orlando to even come close in these games. And give credit to Orlando, they're putting out a defensive game plan in which Boston is struggling with. But the Celtics, they're making uncharacteristic mistakes, mainly within the turnover department and just some of the focus that's within the game. I rewatched Game 3 earlier this morning, and it just was baffling how the attention to detail within what the Celtics were doing defensively and then offensively, some of the carelessness in which we're seeing within the series. It's definitely a little uncharacteristic for the Celtics from what we've seen. And again, credit to Orlando. They've stifled the Celtics, but overall, the Celtics, they just have to play a much better game. And I didn't think they played a much better game tonight, but in the playoffs, it's all about winning and losing. And the Celtics, they're the better team down the stretch. Again, 16-7 run to close out this game. And you're feeling pretty good about going into Game 5 back home and their ability to close out the series, or all of us are feeling pretty good going back to Game 5, and the Celtics having the ability potentially to close out this series. But tonight, again, it's just the win. The win is what I'm looking at. Everything else, not pretty, but in the playoffs, a win is a win, and that's how we have to take it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. A win is a win. Did Boston do anything exceptional tonight? I thought they rebounded the ball really well. I thought they did a great job at limiting turnovers outside of that second quarter, which were improvements from Game 3, in which they really struggled in both departments. I just think this is the type of series this is going to be, right? It's going to be a really slow-paced, mucked-up, defensive-minded series. And Boston did a phenomenal job at just taking advantage of Orlando's lack of offensive ability. Tonight, what sticks out to me on the defensive end of the floor is the inconsistent shooting of Paolo Banchero, and I thought a lot of that was due to contested, forced mid-range shots by Paolo. 12 of 32 from the floor to a 6 from behind the arc, so 26 of those 32 shots coming from the two-point land. Boston held down the fort, forced them to be inconsistent. Again, let's look at the shot distribution real quick for Orlando. 32 for Paolo, 22 for Franz. That's 54 of their team's 88 shots coming from two guys. Boston tonight, kind of less so of shot distribution. 25 from Tatum, 16 from Brown, 14 from Porzingis, 11 from White. So still, Boston, the shot distribution tells the story. It really was a 2-on-4 out there tonight. I thought Boston made the necessary timely plays down the stretch. I thought they got to the free throw line. They took 32 free throws and they knocked down their free throws, 30 of 32. That's huge when you got a series like this and the refs just have their hands all over the series and they're so okay with blowing the whistle. You got to attack, and I think Boston did that. I don't think Boston really forced much tonight compared to Game 3. Only 31 three-point attempts. So again, it's a very uncharacteristic series, right? And I think this one is going to be an outlier compared to what we see moving forward here. What's important, Boston, they improved on what they didn't do well in Game 3. It might have not looked pretty, but they improved and they got better and they made adjustments, which we know this team does, and they respond.
Well, yeah, I'll add on to that adjustments point. I mean, the adjustments were pretty clear early on. And in this series, we actually have a tweet for this. Well, how about let's throw up this tweet real quick from, I believe it's from Sean Grandy. Let's see what we got here. This is why, the glasses. This is why the glasses are important. Is this the one? Is this I think it's this one. Let's see. Here we go. Yes. This is the one. All right. Tweet early tweet within the broadcast here. So the Celtics have played 85 games this year. This is actually after, I'll disclaim this. This is after Game 3. Sean Grandy tweeted this. So basically add 1 to all of these stats. So Celtics have played 86 games this year. 69 times they've taken more than 43s. They're 53 and 16 in those games. 16 times they've taken 40 or fewer threes. So actually, in terms of how it's applicable to Game 4, so 17 times they've taken 40 or fewer threes, because the Celtics, they take 31 three-point attempts tonight. They're 10-6 in those games, now 11-6 after tonight's win. Finally getting a win in Orlando after a 5-game losing streak in Orlando, Florida. The Celtics finally win a game in Orlando, but now they're 11-6 in those games where they take 40 or fewer threes. Included in those 16 games, or now 17 games, they failed to take more than 40, all 6 against the Magic. Well, now it's all 7. All right, all 7 against the Magic in there, of course. And so, in terms of this tweet right here, how this relates to what we're talking about in terms of the adjustments is, well, Orlando, they're taking away the 3 ball from the Celtics. They want to take the 3 ball away from the Celtics, and they're actually giving away open driving lanes to guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown because they feel comfortable with the size and physicality in which they have on ball with Tatum and Brown, that they can make things hard on Tatum and Brown going towards the rim and trying to get themselves buckets with just an individual defender. They don't have to do a ton of doubling because they trust their on-ball defenders to present enough physicality, to present enough size to disrupt Brown and Tatum. And so the Celtics, they're trying to take advantage of that in some sense, where they understand, well, Orlando, they're taking away the 3 ball from us. Well, we're going to drive aggressively down their throats with Brown and Tatum in particular. See Tatum getting to the free throw line, I believe 14 times tonight, if I'm not mistaken, for Jason Tatum and him getting to the line. So yeah, so tonight 14 of 14 for Jason Tatum getting to the free throw line. And you can tell the Celtics are just being very aggressive at trying to go downhill with those players and them finishing at the rim and getting free throw attempts that way. They're playing a very physical game right now. But just in terms of some other adjustments in which the Celtics have made, well, in terms of that adjustment, I'll say the Celtics are taking their points where Orlando is giving them their points. But outside of that, another adjustment we saw early on was Porzingis. He dominated the early portion of this game, and I'll spoil it right now. He's not our player spotlight tonight, but it felt like early on it could definitely be Porzingis with what he was doing early in this game. I mean, he was in double digits very early on within the first quarter. But in games 1 through 3, what we saw from Porzingis was a lot of high pick and roll, and he would come off flare screens he would come off flare screens from the corner or the wing to go set screens at the top of the key for the high pick and roll. And tonight we saw a lot more dives, a lot more cuts to the rim from Porzingis. There were a lot more slip screens from Porzingis where you saw, well, if the lane is open and Porzingis, if you have the ball handler at the top of the key, whether it's Tatum or Brown or Derek White, we saw Derek White was huge in facilitating for Porzingis, especially early on in that game. But if you have the ball handler at the top of the key there, what the Celtics would do is they send a little flare screen over to Porzingis, and instead of going to set that high pick and roll action, he would just cut to the rim. He would just roll to the rim, and then the Celtics, they would have multiple options off that because Porzingis, he would either number one, he would have himself an easy layup or a dunk, as we saw in a couple possessions there. But if a help defender came over, that's when you'd see the Orlando Magic. They would sag off the 3-point line, and then they would be giving Boston those 3-point shots. But that's where Orlando, they weren't trying to give Boston those 3-point shots. They weren't sending that extra help defender, and that's where Porzingis found a lot of his success going towards the rim on some cuts and some slip screens early on in that game. So that was an adjustment the Celtics made early to get themselves some points. And I thought it was pretty big in this game because the Magic, they challenged the Celtics throughout this contest. And then the early portion of the game, you could tell Brown and Tatum and the entire team, and just from 3 in general, the team started out 4 of 13 from 3. They were just not in rhythm. And the Magic have made things hard on the Celtics getting points this entire series. And the Celtics, they were able to find themselves a way to get points early on in the game. And even more so, Kristaps Porzingis, he hit his first 3-pointer of the series with 7:45 left in the second quarter of game 4. He was 0 of 11 from 3-point land in games 1 through 3, plus the first quarter of this one tonight. 0 of 11 for Kristaps Porzingis. He finally comes in and hits a 3-pointer. We're going to need to see Kristaps hit a couple more 3-pointers throughout this playoff run, in which I think we will see against other defenses. Kristaps Porzingis will be able to stretch him out a little bit better than we have with the Magic. And the Magic have just been super physical with him. But Porzingis, just in general, just to touch on him real quick, he has to be better. Period. He in some of these mismatch opportunities, Corey Joseph, Gary Harris, he is actually struggling to admit physicality towards them. He's 7'3". These guys are 6'2", 6'3". They are not the biggest guys in the world. I mean, he is a foot taller than him, and he is settling for some of these free throw line jumpers where he just cannot get by him, where he's putting a body on him and he can't get by him. We all know Kristaps Porzingis is not the most physical player in the world, but some of these matchups he has to take better care of and just better advantage of, because some of the shots in which he is taking in these situations, not amazing whatsoever. And it just kind of goes along with the Celtics offense as a whole being disrupted within the series. Because again, tonight, 7 second quarter turnovers for the C's. That's not great whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, that just to hit on some of the adjustments in Porzingis tonight, that was something that I thought early on was big in this game, both the adjustment for Porzingis, but just how Porzingis is playing in this series in general. I think if we were getting better productivity out of him, period, in these first 4 games in the series, I think the Celtics would be having a little bit better of a time creating points on the offensive end than they are right now.
Yeah, and that's why, just real quick, that's just why I think the comparison to Indiana from last year is so valid with this series, because against Indiana offensively could attack Boston's defensive abilities very well. Orlando, very strong defensive team matchup-wise, can attack Boston's from a defensive standpoint very well. Sorry, Griffin, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. Yeah, I said that game 1. I really thought it was going to be like a Pacers series like last year. And I just think it's the fact that just you just said it right there, Rob, but like it's crazy that Pritchard in 26 minutes has 0 points, and it's crazy that this is Porzingis's first 3-pointer of the series, and it shows you how much like he needs to step up in this series, and it shows you that without Holiday, it's been tough. I mean, the Boston Celtics, I thought tonight was a better, more so team win. I'm happy that Porzingis could step up and give you more. You know, he in 22 minutes had 19 points, got into some foul trouble, but I'm happy that it felt more comfortable as a team effort. But like you said, Seamus, too, I mean, he's struggling against a lot of these matchups, and that is kind of alarming considering that they're a lot shorter than him and he can't just shoot over them, you know, like it's definitely, but it's just the defensive scheme against Boston. And that's why this is going to be, I think, one of the tougher opponents that you're going to see in the Eastern Conference, because you look at it, at least defensively, I don't think you'll see a better defensive team unless you get to OKC. And even then, can we say they're 10 times better defensively than Orlando? Not really. I mean, if this is a really good defensive team, and this is one of the better matchups. That's why a lot of us were hoping for Atlanta in a sense, because for one, I think it would be less physical. As you could see, a lot of the players are getting banged up for the Boston Celtics. And at the same time, I mean, you look at it, you kind of, obviously you want some challenging opponents for the first round to, you know, give them a little test, see what they got. But at the same time, the Boston Celtics are getting banged up bad. Like, this is, I don't remember the last time we've had a series this physical. I mean, quote me if I'm wrong, but it's been a minute since players have been banged up like this left and right. I mean, it's been a while. And obviously, you know, coming into it, we had Holiday, like, you know, with that mallet finger a while ago, and Porzingis, and then Jaylen Brown, obviously, before the series, but Tatum getting banged up, and just Holiday now back on the injury list. And it alarms me a little bit. But I think this.
I won't lie, though. I'm not as worried about that as everyone I think else is. It's valid. Holiday's hamstring, I think, is quite frankly, and I could be wrong. I could be so wrong here, but I think the Celtics know what they have in front of them. I think they, right or wrong, even though I disagree with it, I think they understand what the best path towards keeping fresh legs and best path towards being precautionary is. I think that's why you saw Jason Tatum miss a game in which 2 days later he played in game 3, right? He missed game 2. 2 days later, he plays in game 3 just fine, scoring 36 points. So while I do think there's some valid, like, oh, okay, this is a mucked up series, it's very physical. I think this is really, really, really good for Boston and for how the rest of the playoffs come, because once you get out of this, everything feels just a little bit more easy. It feels a little right. Something you might think was contact, you come out of the series and you're like, okay, that's not contact. And I think that goes a long way in a playoff series. We talked about this last year. I believe it was game 2. Maybe it was game 3. Honestly, all these games kind of are warped into one in my head right now. They're so similar. But you know, it's if you see a team like it's bad if the first physical series you have is in the NBA Finals, right? Maybe your legs are a little bit more there, but when you take a punch in the first round, and I think you go back to 2022, I think what was so amazing about that run was that first round series, Boston from the jump was engaged, and from the jump they were active, and they came out and it was like this Nets versus Celtics, and they were instantly punched in the face in the first round. They swept handily, and I think this is going to be a 5-game series, despite a downfall in Boston on Tuesday. But I think this is really good. And I just want to touch on Seamus. You said something that was really, really important. And I think it's kind of sums up the series is the word uncomfortable. Because even an open shot, when you're out of rhythm and you're playing in an uncomfortable environment, in an uncomfortable basketball setting, an open shot doesn't feel open anymore. And I think a lot of what we're seeing with Porzingis and the struggle that's been presented, although tonight wasn't terrible, 19 points, 7 of 14 from the floor, 2 of 4 from 3. About 3 or 4 of those missed field goals really should have been buckets against a weaker, smaller Joseph or Cole Anthony. But when you talk about basketball, it's so much rhythm, it's so much, the feel for the game. That has not been there for Boston. And it's not nothing they're not doing. I think it's all what Orlando does. And you showed that graphic. Shout out Sean Grandy. 17 times this year, Celtics have taken under 43s. 7 of those 17 have come against Orlando. Orlando defensively attacks Boston like no other team, and they make Boston's life difficult. And it's funny, you hear it on the broadcast, they say, oh, are they laying down the framework? It's like, no, what they're doing and what they have is just really, really, really strong defensive ability against Boston. It's like in football when you got the best pass, right? The worst run defense in the league, but the best pass coverage in the league, and you're playing against the best passing offense. You're obviously going to, strive against that offense because your defensive pass coverage is very good. And that's what you're kind of seeing in the series. So a lot of the stuff, right? Like the Derek White was kind of out of rhythm from behind the arc, and you're seeing Porzingis kind of miss some of these easy gimme bunnies, and even Brown tonight had a couple looks at the rim that's like normally they drop. And I think that this series has just been really uncomfortable for these guys, and some of those easy gimmies and those open threes in the corner that are so normally just in rhythm and in sync when you're flowing, it's not there because there really hasn't been a whole lot of flow. And I don't think that's a downside on Boston. I think it's just we would be underplaying how good Orlando's defensive ability against Boston really is.
So can I ask a question for you guys? Do you guys believe then, obviously, if we do face Cleveland down the road or Indiana again, do you guys agree that this could be the best matchup in the Eastern Conference for the Boston Celtics till the finals? Do you guys agree with that?
I do. Defensively, yes, I do. I agree. I don't know what you think, Seamus. I think that when you look at Orlando as a team defense, they're second best in the league, only behind Oklahoma City, who was phenomenal. Look at Oklahoma's versatility is ridiculous. Orlando's versatility is amazing. There's really no baby seal out there that you can pounce on. Like Cole Anthony and Corey Joseph kind of are, but again, you talk about team defense. They're such a good team defensive unit that you can't attack a baby seal because that baby seal's got a group of 4 sharks rolling with them. So it's really not as easy as it seems. I look at a team like Cleveland, Garland, Allen, those are baby seals, and we're going to go at them every single time. And they're, as a team, not as good as a defensive unit as this Orlando Magic team is.
Well, I think from a defensive standpoint, certainly the Magic are the best matchup for the Celtics out of any team in the Eastern Conference right now, because the Magic, out of the entire league have the best defense. You could argue either them or Oklahoma City. And I know a lot of people think fondly of Oklahoma City's defense, but Orlando is up there too. And if you just think about those two teams, well, that's 1 and 2. One's in the East, one's in the West. Orlando, they have the best defense statistically in the East this season and throughout this playoff run as well. And we're seeing it against the Celtics easily in this series. The Celtics, they have not reached 110 yet. We came into the series thinking, oh, if the Celtics can just reach 110, they should sweep the Magic. Well, the Celtics have yet to reach 110 in this series. And tonight, again, 107. But I will say this. Let me just check the rebounding battle tonight. So in terms of rebounding, 38 rebounds for the Magic, and the Celtics came up with 46. So you see there, Celtics winning the rebounding battle tonight. That's part of the conversation of the Celtics actually bettering themselves from Game 3. But this is what bothers me, I will say, about this series, right? And that was a crucial stat to look at before I started to talk about this. But you look at the rest of the East, right? And the rest of the East, they don't have the defenses in order to match up against the Celtics. And what the Celtics have done all season is mismatch hunt. They've straight up hunted every single mismatch they possibly can all season long with Brown, with Tatum, with Porzingis primarily. And those guys on the floor, they are constantly mismatch hunting. Well, the rest of the East, this is why the rest of the East does not defensively compare with Orlando. Orlando does not have somebody out there in which the Celtics can comfortably mismatch hunt. The rest of the East, you can pick out guys on the Cavaliers. The Celtics are going to have a fest out there mismatch hunting. Same thing with the Knicks. And we talked about Jalen Brunson last post game. Oh, Jalen Brunson, he's their top offensive creator, the Knicks. Well, guess what? He's also the guy in which the Celtics want to go at. Same thing with Darius Garland in a series with the Cavs. The Celtics are going to want to go at Garland, and Garland is a guy in which is a primary creator for the Cavaliers. That's going to present some problems for teams like the Knicks or the Cavaliers if the Celtics face either one of those teams. Well, as for Orlando in this series, although their offense has been absolutely horrendous because they don't have any creators out there other than Boncaro and Franz Wagner, defensively, Orlando straight up doesn't have anybody that the Celtics want to go at. And the one person in which the Celtics felt very comfortable last game going at was Cole Anthony. And what did we see tonight? Well, Cole Anthony was essentially taken out of the rotation in favor of Anthony Black, who's a much more sizable defender, and Gary Harris, who has more experience, and he does have his moments as a defender as well. And both of those guards for the Orlando Magic took over Cole Anthony's minutes simply because Cole Anthony was a guy last game in which the Celtics, they felt comfortable mismatch hunting. They felt comfortable going at him specifically with Jason Tatum. And so the Orlando Magic take that away from the Celtics tonight, and there's just simply less options out on the floor. And so from a defensive standpoint, Orlando matches up with Boston better than pretty much any team in the league, maybe outside of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And we're seeing it in this series, and it's definitely why the Celtics are struggling to create points. But that's what's frustrating from my perspective within this series when it comes to the Celtics creating points for themselves. Now, the rebounding battle is important. I'm glad to see the Celtics out-rebounded the Magic tonight because that is something they have failed to do all series long, and it's something that's been big for the Magic. If the Celtics can either keep it even or even take the advantage in that category, as they did tonight, that's taking away a huge part of what the Orlando Magic rely on in order to score points. And so in tonight's game, the Celtics, they thankfully win the rebounding battle. But in terms of actually creating offensive points for themselves, the Celtics, I'm still just not seeing the creativity within the offense. And I'm looking at the offense in some of these occasions. I'm going, this is a little bit too stagnant. There's a little bit too much dribbling from Brown. There's a little bit too much dribbling from Jason Tatum. And in some of these situations, they turn the ball over. I mean, we saw last game 7 turnovers for Jason Tatum. Now tonight, in terms of turnovers for the Celtics, only 10 turnovers to the Magic's 10 as well. So both teams had 10 turnovers tonight. But the Celtics, they cleaned that up a little bit, but it still has not been all that great. Obviously, when you can, cut your turnover number in half from last game in which the Celtics did. I mean, there was a discrepancy. Some people had 19. I heard 20. I heard 21 after last game. But regardless of what the number was, the Celtics cut that number in half. That being said, there are some moments within the offense in which they just turn the ball over, particularly late in quarters. When the Orlando Magic in this game alone, they were going on a couple of runs near the end of the quarters, and the Celtics unfortunately turned the ball over and allowed the Magic to get back in the game via transition points and points off of turnovers. But also, it's just the stagnation within the offense in general. There's a lot of dribbling from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and it's because those guys, the Celtics want both of them to go one-on-one in these situations when they're not doubled. And when Orlando is taking away those 3-point shots, well, it's Brown or Tatum. It turns into an ISO game. And to me, I don't like that style of basketball. I understand stars can be efficient within the isolation game, but we all know Brown or Tatum, when you are putting that kind of mileage on both of them for the entirety of the game, as we're seeing on the other side with Boncaro and Wagner, when you get to that fourth quarter, legs get heavy. And some of the shots in which Brown or Tatum have taken in the last two games, Rob, you mentioned it, they just don't look comfortable. They do not look comfortable whatsoever. And some of these shots are legitimately bad shots off of a bad possession. And from my perspective, we need to see a little bit more creativity like we did in the first half. And that's where it comes to the in-game adjustments is, well, in that first half, talk about Porzingis. Yes, he had a solid night, 19 points. But he's essentially started the game with 13 points in the first about 14 minutes of the game. So you're saying after that, he only scored 6 points in the next 3 quarters, essentially. And that's where, well, early on, the Celtics, they're able to get Porzingis rolling to the rim in some of these opportunities, and even in a pick and pop situation when they take it away. But then the rest of the night, Porzingis, he's just not able to take advantage of his mismatches, and the Celtics can't get that same play to go because the Orlando Magic are now aware and taking it away. So some of the in-game adjustments, it has to do with this entire series as well. And I just think the Magic, I don't think they're necessarily giving out a game plan on how to beat the Celtics, but I think they're certainly showing some of the flaws the Celtics own when they face a really good defense like the Magic. And I believe the Celtics later on down the line, they could face more great defenses. We just saw the Minnesota Timberwolves. They went up 3-1 on the Lakers. They certainly have a position now where you could see them making a run, maybe all the way to the finals. Who knows? We've been talking about OKC. They're another great defensive team. Both of those teams look like the strongest out west right now. And if the Celtics meet either one of those teams, it's going to be the same story defensively. They're going to have guys who can match up. There's going to be a lot of things taken away from the Celtics. And we've seen, particularly, if you're talking about the Thunder, the Magic, the Timberwolves, the Celtics have struggled against all those defenses. And it's not as if they necessarily have the game plan to beat the Celtics, but yes, they have the personnel to do so. And from that standpoint, this Orlando Magic team is certainly one of the 3 teams in which the Celtics just cannot quite find the rhythm against. They don't quite have the answers to. I think there's a higher level of creativity to go to when it comes to the coaching staff and what the Celtics bring to the floor, because some of the possessions, I understand the Celtics came away with this game in the end, and let's just face it, they came away with this game in the end because of some big offensive rebounding opportunities for guys like Al Horford, guys like Peyton Pritchard, and just in general, we saw Brown and Tatum rebounding the ball at a ferocious rate tonight, both of them in double-digit rebounds. They had some hard rebounds throughout this game, but the Celtics did it in a very physical manner down the stretch, and they did it in a manner which was uncharacteristic to themselves because it was a really muscle-it-out game late there in the fourth quarter. But overall, I think the Celtics, they need to find more ways. And they maybe not even in this series, because let's face it, there might be only one game left in this series back at the Garden in Game 5. But the Celtics, they have to find more ways to get other guys open, and particularly shoot more threes. All right. So their whole philosophy of success is volume and shooting threes. And you see in the series, they cannot get their 3-point shooters open. And they're going, well, okay, we're going to take what Orlando gives us. But then what Orlando is giving the Celtics is less efficient attempts from what the Celtics want from 3-point land. And the whole point of game planning and adjusting is freeing up those attempts for yourself, freeing up the attempts you want to get. Sometimes, yes, a defense is giving you something, but what they're giving you is more inefficient than what you could otherwise create if you throw a counterpunch at that defense. And I just don't think the counterpunches this series from particularly Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff have been all that strong. I think later on in time when we face the Knicks, we face the Cavs or we face the Pacers, whoever else, I think it's going to be a little bit better because those teams have worse defenses. And the Celtics, again, they're going to have the ability to mismatch hunt in those series. But in a series against a team like the Magic, like the Timberwolves, like the Thunder, the Celtics, they don't, it doesn't feel as if they have that level they've gone to where they're actually finding the shots in which they want to find in relevance with what the defense is giving them. It's just been a complete mess this entire series, and give credit, all the credit really, to Orlando, because I understand we're kind of I'm ripping apart at least the coaching staff here and some of the intricacies of the Celtics offense. But at the same time, the reason it's happening is because the Orlando Magic, they are just a ferocious, sizable, physical defensive team that's 100% bought in as a 7 seed right now. I bet they're thinking, man, if we just came up with a couple more possessions, we'd be the ones up 3-1 in this series.
Right. I think that from a series standpoint, tonight kind of told the story. Tonight's like it was kind of like game 2, where, and we can take a look at the lead tracker here, where, Orlando comes out largest lead of the night, and then it was kind of it's this series version of the green wave. Like, this is what you're gonna get out of the green wave this against the Orlando Magic. Boston's largest lead of the night was only 9, but they kind of controlled the game. They never allowed Orlando to get back and control a lead at really any point after the late portion of that second quarter, where Orlando kind of captured that 3-point lead. Again, Orlando's largest lead of the night was 8. 5 times this game was tied. The longest run of the game was 11-3 lead changes. Guys, now, are we so confident moving into game 5 back in Boston that this series is going to be a wrap? Does Orlando have one more big haymaker punch to throw, or is this series kind of over?
I'm gonna say it's over, Rob. I don't want to get ahead of myself because, I'm a superstitious person. That's why I said on that Cortez podcast that I don't want to hear that Orlando Magic song till this series is over. Don't even think about it.
Even though you've heard it about 3 times.
No, I listen. As soon as I hear
the button,
don't even hit that button. We will hit
I'll
it.
say this, though, it's not on record.
No, listen. We will not hit that button until the series is over. Then I'm playing the Boston Celtics version, but I think the series is going to end on Tuesday night. I really do. I think the Boston Celtics, they need to come out with a big bang. I'm hoping to see kind of maybe Holiday play a little more, maybe get back into there. I'm not sure, but I think ultimately the Boston Celtics are going to come out there and they want to get that rest. I mean, that's so crucial for the Boston Celtics to get some rest. And ultimately, it doesn't seem that way as the Knicks take a 3-1 lead now, but I think the Boston Celtics want to get this series over with and get a little bit of rest in. What are your thoughts, Seamus?
Well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about Drew Holiday right now. Let's talk about Drew Holiday point blank. What is going on here? Well, I'm trying to configure whether or not this is an actual hamstring injury or if they're actually resting him, because at what point in the season are we just going to abandon they're preserving these guys? Does it have to be the semifinals? Does it have to be the conference finals? Does it have to be the finals? We're in the NBA playoffs. I don't understand why Drew Holiday would take 2 games in a row off in the playoffs. I could see him taking 1 off in game 3. Like, that could have been the possibility, but he was immediately ruled out for game 4. And it's also something on the injury report that we haven't seen. It's the hamstring, and the hamstrings, we all know. And I think about, from a defensive perspective, what's big on the defensive end of the floor? It's your hamstrings, it's your glute muscles, it's your core, it's all those within that portion of the body, and the hamstring definitely has to do with playing good defense and having good hamstrings. Well, Drew Holiday, could he have actually injured his hamstring already in this playoff series? I don't know. It's been very physical, as we've seen, and it's been the 2 games in which he played, the first 2 games at home, those were both intense games, as these 2 games in Orlando have been. But I'm wondering if they were just resting Drew Holiday, why wouldn't they put the shoulder impingement on there and go, oh, well, the shoulder, we've been dealing with it all season. He's still a little, he's still a little shook from his shoulder right now. We'll put him on the injury report. It doesn't make much sense to me as to why he would miss 2 games and why he would be out immediately the night before Game 4. He was out last night. We saw him on the injury report last night. He was out. What are your guys' level of concern when it comes to Drew Holiday? I know, Rob, you're thinking this could be rest for what's in front of the Celtics, but I'm kind of raising alarm bells here, going, okay, 2 straight games in the playoffs. That's not very orthodox of a team at all. Not very orthodox. So, Griffin, what do you think about all this when it comes to Drew Holiday and his hamstring? Is it a real thing or is it rest?
I think a lot of it has been rest. I feel like Tatum's injury might have even been rest too. I was kind of pushing for that. I thought even personally he was gonna sit in Game 3 because I thought I didn't think he would play until the Celtics got a loss. But the reason why I'm concerned is you would think after the Celtics lost Game 3, you would think that Holiday would come back in Game 4 and play. However, that was not the case. So there is some concern on it because why would you sit him after a loss? It just doesn't make sense. I could see if they won Game 4 and then you sit him again for Game 5, that might not make sense in a matter of that as well. But I just don't see why after a loss he's still on the bench. That raises an eyebrow for sure. But ultimately, I feel like what you guys have said is kind of right. I feel like this is the perfect time to get in some rest, round 1, and it's been a physical series. I mean, guys have been shaken up. So I don't know, but my eyebrow raises in the fact that he didn't play Game 4 because why wouldn't he play after a loss? That's my only concern.
Well, my only doubt with it is when you're dealing with a hamstring, there's got to be some play to draw back to and okay, this is the play where his hamstring got a little, sore or pulled or something. And here's, a series of plays where he's limping or looks uncomfortable and looks unbothered. But I didn't see that in Game 2. He played 36 minutes then, and then this injury pops up. Is it a little sore? Maybe. But I don't know. It seems like Boston feels comfortable with what they have and what they got. So I just can't draw back to a certain play in which that hamstring, unless it was in practice, which I haven't read about, but I can't pinpoint when this mystery hamstring injury would have happened. And if I could, then I would say, okay, no, this isn't rest. This is an injury or not rest, but this isn't precautionary. This is an injury that we need to be concerned about. I just can't. I can't pick out a play where his hamstring goes on him and he's limping or he looks uncomfortable.
I feel like there's many occasions in which it could flare up, and you never know. Guys walk off the court and they feel one way, and then all of a sudden, you sit down for a little bit and then go, "Oh, my calf, it's a little tight," or "Oh, my hamstring's a little tight," and then things can go from there. Drew Holiday, the whole 2 games in a row, I feel like if they were resting him, it would only be that one game. And after the loss, Griffin, I would tend to lean on your side where I go, after a loss, why would you sit him again after a loss, knowing, oh, we were resting him in Game 3 and it bit us in the ass and we lost. Well, after that, they went, no, let's run it again. He's out again Game 4. Drew Holiday, I'm going to continue to repeat this. He is more important to the Celtics playoff run than, say, a guy like Kristaps Porzingis. Everybody up, Porzingis has to be healthy, but again, the bigs behind him. Horford was phenomenal tonight. Oh, we have some stuff on Al Horford later, but he was phenomenal tonight. You have Al Horford there, Cornette. He's obviously playing some minutes. Keita is the break the glass player right now. Tillman is. I mean, Tillman. I don't. What do you even term as that man right now? Like that is last resort. Like emergency call. Like on-star. I don't even. Tillman is the on-star player right now. It's like, oh, if you really need him, you got to click that button. But you do it.
That's actually.
He's AAA. He's AAA. Like heck, Keita's your fire extinguisher. Like
hey, you
Tillman's
guys,
your AAA guy.
I think Tillman's had enough hate this year. I think you guys gotta chill it on You know, you guys have to admit, you guys must feel bad for the man. I mean, he after this, he will never have another NBA job. I'm saying
He's a champion with the Celtics, making millions a year.
you're right. You're right.
I mean, come on. We can say we can objectively say that he played 7 minutes per game, and maybe with a little bit of a chuckle after it, and not feel bad. It's like okay, at least he's a champ. It's all fun and games though. I mean,
He's got a ring. I don't.
I still mention him though. Here's the thing: I still give him his respect. I still mention him as a player the Celtics could play. It's just more the fact every time you mention him, it's kind of like, is that a joke? Because he hasn't played this entire season, unfortunately. But you do have those bigs there sitting after Porzingis. But after Holiday, all you have is Pritchard and J.D. Davison. I mean, your guy, J.D. Davison, Griffin, but I don't know if we're going to be playing him many playoff minutes in the upcoming playoff series. But after Holiday, there just isn't much depth there. You have White, Holiday starting. Then after Holiday, it's only Pritchard coming in off the bench for your guards. So the guard rotation, the rotation just becomes very thin when you're talking about a guy like Holiday going out of the lineup. And unfortunately, the Celtics and Holiday, I don't know what the whole ordeal is here with Holiday and his hamstring. I will say it seems like a real thing. I was willing to say after game 3 that okay, this could be a rest day. Yes, you go down to Orlando. Can you steal game 3? Then you're up 3-0, and then you go, oh, maybe we sit him out game 4 and he doesn't have to play at all. Well, unfortunately, the Celtics lose that game, and they don't bring him back for game 4 anyway. And that does raise some eyebrows for me. Just the sheer fact he's out 2 games in a row in the playoffs. And I would say, yes, you do want to preserve him from later on down the line, but this game tonight, we saw it was 91-91. Thankfully, the Celtics finished this game on a 16-7 run, but late in the fourth quarter, tied 91-91. There was a lot of Celtics Nation thinking, oh my goodness, could this be 2-2 heading back to Boston? And then we know heading back to Boston, we have a crucial game 6 in Orlando coming up. That was the scenario on the table tonight for the Celtics. And that's why I think Drew Holiday, this might be a real injury because the Celtics came into this game needing to win this game and in a crucial spot after losing game 3. And instead of throwing Holiday out there for a crucial game, they went, well, he's not going to play. And I feel like that actually points to something real rather than rest, because I feel like on a rest occasion, they would go, well, we're on the brink of a 2-2. If we fumble this game here, Holiday has to be out there. And that wasn't the case. Holiday sat down. That's why I feel like the injury definitely could be something moving forward.
Yeah, it's interesting because again, we don't have anything on it. It's just like popped up, right? It wasn't like, oh, there, that happened. It's like, oh, all of a sudden Drew Holiday's, it was like a late right in too, towards like the back half of the day where you thought it was just Tatum and Brown on the injury report. And then Holiday popped up as out and you're just like, wait a second. So hopefully he'll be back for game 5. Although again, you talk about up 3-1, is game 5 a game where we've won now a game without. So it'll be interesting to follow. I'm with you though. I am, where it is concerning. It's like a little bit like an eyebrow raise for sure. I'm not super worried about it, but it is something worth paying attention. His running mate though, Mr. Derek White, he had himself yet another performance tonight, guys. He is your SeatGeek. I'm liking how it's not spoiled here, Seamus. I'm liking that because I usually normally look up and I'm like, you know what? It's like I'll mention it at the start, but now we can kind of we can pop this up and they don't know. No one knows. So guys, for those of wondering, tonight's SeatGeek player spotlight of the game, Mr. Derek White tonight, guys. Before I talk about Derek White, I do just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of the post-game show, SeatGeek. Guys, SeatGeek is the best ticketing app out there on the market, and they have you covered for all the best prices during this Celtic playoff run. Guys, whether the Celtics are on the road near you or back in Boston, back at home, it is the perfect time to catch a Celtics game as they make a run at a back-to-back championship NBA Finals title defense. Guys, at checkout, use code Celtics Weekly for $20 off your first purchase. at checkout. Again, a huge shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring the postgame show. Let's talk about Derek White, because the man was clutch tonight and he had some timely plays to be made. 18 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. He had a block, 7 of 11. Very efficient shooting of the floor from D. White. 2 of 6 from behind the arc. Again, not terrible. A couple missed open threes. Could easily been a 4-6 or 3-6 night. Derek White, guys, what did you see from him tonight as a contributor for the Celtics win?
I mean, I'm going to say this. Derek White is something special on this Boston Celtics team. I mean, I'm going to say this. When Derek White first joined the team, you guys are going to call me crazy, but I was pissed. I was pissed. I was sad because I wasn't a fan of Derek White, and I actually liked Josh Richardson. I am banging myself in the head every day since I said that. And I am like, Derek White, do you accept me to be a Derek White fan? Like, I changed my mind quick. I tell you what, I liked him. I went to a game shortly after he got traded to Boston. And when I was at that game, I was like, all right, I like this guy. He's a good defender. He's a great basketball player. And I quickly became a Derek White fan. But man, this guy is incredible. And on any given night for the Boston Celtics, you saw when they were struggling back in January and December, late December, Derek White was struggling too. I mean, he is the reason why the Boston Celtics are so good. I mean, you could say, all right, Jason Tatum, who had a phenomenal night as well with 37 points. You could say Jaylen Brown, Porzingis, Holiday, but Derek White is a name that everyone needs to mention because he is incredible. He's an incredible defender. He can give you buckets, and he's been so fun to watch this year. I mean, ever since my older brother pulled up a stat, the Boston Celtics, I don't know exactly how much, but have been very, very good ever since making this trade for Derek White. I mean, you guys see it. It's incredible. It's incredible how much he, I'm trying to look for the word, how much he really just makes the game come so much easier. I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but he's just phenomenal. And tonight with 18 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists and a block, I mean, he was pretty much the X factor for the Boston Celtics. Tatum had a big night as well, but Derek White has been incredible. That's my thoughts on him, though, for tonight. What about you, Seamus?
Yeah, Derek White's performance in this game, the Celtics needed it, especially early on, and we saw he was kind of the main contributor to what the Celtics were doing early in the game, especially with Kristaps Porzingis rolling to the rim and Derek White being a facilitator for that. We see the 7 assists on the night, but Derek White, he was able to get after it in the scoring categories as well. You see the 18 points. The reason why this 18 points is so big, though, for Derek White is the fact you saw the 2 of 6 metric. He was 5 of 5. 5 of 5 from 2 tonight. 5 of 5. 2 of 6 from three-point land, but he was 5 of 5 from 2. And that was huge for the Celtics because talk about the adjustments early on in this game. The Celtics, they did a much better job in this contest of taking what Orlando was giving them. And some of that was drives to the rim and open drives for guys like Derek White. And we saw a couple of opportunities within this game where the team would grab an offensive rebound, or just in general, in transition, the Magic's defense was it would be a little bit out of whack in a scramble situation. And Derek White was often the player who was aggressive in getting the ball, dribble driving hard to the rim, and either finding himself a shot or finding a shot for somebody else. And that was huge for the Celtics tonight. And it's always been huge for the Celtics this entire season when Derek White is able to do that within the offense, because it does take a little bit of a load off of Brown and Tatum, and it just puts more advantage within the Celtics' favor in the margins, in the little hustle margins within the game. Derek White is so good at bringing those numbers to the Celtics when it comes to the rebounding and being able to capitalize off of the rebounding and some of the turnovers in which they create, especially in transition. Derek White, he's an all-around player for the Celtics. We know this. He gets after it defensively, offensively. He can be somebody who really makes for other people, gets the ball moving, and just makes the right proper decisions on that end of the floor. I will say Derek White in this series, along with the rest of the Celtics, defensively, there have been moments where they just haven't looked great. But in other moments, they've looked terrific and they've looked fantastic, and we just need to see that more consistently as the playoffs move on. We need to see the Celtics defense turn up to that next level more consistently than they have been this series. But overall, Derek White, he was super crucial in pulling out tonight's win. Yes, he could have went with Tatum, 37 points and double-digit rebounds, but Tatum, for the most part, not that efficient from the floor. A lot of superhero shots from Tatum out there, and then you saw from Brown and Porzingis. Porzingis came out hot, but didn't really do much the rest of the game, and then Brown didn't have the most efficient night either. So all three of those guys, they were on player spotlight watch tonight, but Derek White came out with the most efficient game, going 7-11 from the field, scoring 18 points. Again, a big 18 points within the equation for the Celtics because he was able to go 5 of 5 from 2, and then you see as well, got after it in the rebounding category, got after it in the assist category as well, which shows just some of his activity on the floor, both as a playmaker and as a high energy guy for the Celtics team. Derek White already this series in 4 games, 2 player spotlights. So in terms of all the who's leading the way in player spotlights in the playoffs, I don't have a tally for the regular season yet, but for the playoffs, Derek White, he's on the leaderboard. He's at 2, 30-point night in game 1. Huge for the Celtics on that occasion, because he was able to give the Celtics the extra scoring punch at the end they needed in order to pull out that game. And then again tonight, Derek White being that we call Drew Holiday the Swiss Army knife, but he is another guy alongside of him, Derek White, who is also can be claimed to be one of those as well, a Swiss Army knife for the Celtics team, because he just does everything. And in the background, he's so big for this Celtics team in just creating extra opportunities and taking advantage of those extra opportunities. If the Celtics didn't have Derek White, this series could look a lot different than what it looks right now.
He was huge. I mean, you guys mentioned it, but his ability just to make life easier, like Griffin, you said, and his versatility, Seamus, and his shot making ability down the stretch. It feels like this guy hits every timely shot and every timely bucket necessary. He was a very efficient for 5 of 5 tonight. For me, Derek White, we've said it, is the floor setter. Tonight he did that. Without this guy, things look a whole lot different for Boston, and he really is. This guy elevates the Celtics. He alongside Brown and Tatum is Mr. Consistent. And you go down the list of guys who you're not so worried about because you know they'll show up. Derek White is right there on that list. Tonight, I thought he did a phenomenal job at balancing aggressiveness and what's the word? Sorry, I'm blanking on the word. Aggressiveness and just playing passive. There it is. In the passiveness of playmaking and knowing when to attack and knowing when to kick and knowing when to drive. I think defensively there was a couple slip ups that happened, but again, nobody's perfect, and I thought he was a main contributor, and the efficiency to me is what stuck out tonight in a game in which there was not a lot of efficiency from across the board on these stars, right? 40% from Tatum, 37% from Brown, 45 from Franz, 37 from Paolo. It was a game that was kind of mucked up and inefficient. White found a way to be efficient in a game which not many players are doing so. That's really big. Someone else that we need to touch on, Seamus, you mentioned it earlier, and Al Horford, I'm sorry. This is who I'm most excited to talk about tonight. 5 blocks for Al. Joe in his post-game press tonight said, I wish there was a separate box sheet for what Al Horford does, because a lot of what he does doesn't pop up. I know we have some stuff to look at here, Seamus, on Al Horford. Before we do, I just want to say how important and how big it is. You lose Drew Holiday on the defensive end. It feels like that backbone's gone. In comes Al Horford, steps up. 5 blocks. He was huge. Seamus, I know you got some stuff on us for Al Horford for us.
Well, Al Horford tonight, you mentioned the blocks, 5 blocks, and Al Horford now in NBA history. Congratulations to Al Horford of the Celtics, of course, moving into 15th on the all-time playoff blocks list. You see the list right there. Tim Duncan, number 1 with 588, might be 68, 88. I can't really see that well on here. I'm sure people watching on TV could probably see that number. But regardless, Tim Duncan, number 1, Kareem, number 2, Hakeem at 3, Shaq 4, David Robinson 5, Robert Parrish at 6, Patrick Ewing 7, Serge Ibaka. I'm pretty surprised Serge Ibaka this high on the list at 8. LeBron James at 9, Kevin McHale 10. So a lot of Celtics on this list. Dikembe Mutombo 11, Ben Wallace 12, Dwight Howard 13, Dr. J. Julius Irving at 14, and then Al Horford. Wow, look at all these names in which Al Horford is involved in on this all-time playoffs block list. Al Horford 15th all-time, of course, in front of Pau Gasol, Robert Horry, Rasheed Wallace, Caldwell Jones, and Elvin Hayes. Man, that list is legend. I mean, that list right there, those are some heavy hitters on that list. You think Al Horford, 15th on the list, and you see, so he's what, 5 blocks away from Dr. J, and he's about 14 blocks away from Dwight Howard. It's 1,000% possible. Not Derek White, but Al Horford could pass those names and cement himself at number 13 during this playoff run. So 14 blocks, that would be, I guess you'd have to get a block a game. Not quite the rest of the way if you're Al Horford, depending on how many games. But Al Horford, you're looking at this total blocks list, and he could certainly make his way up the list as this playoff run moves along. Certainly to 14, maybe 13th, but tonight Al Horford surpassing Pau Gasol and grabbing that 15th spot on the playoffs block list. But we have some more Al Horford content for you guys here because Al Horford, he hasn't been the instigator this series, but he's been the front line of the Celtics. So first of all, you got the LeBron stare going on. This is game 4 Al. Don't mess with game 4 Al. You know about game 6 Clay, game 6 LeBron, game 6 Jimmy, game 4 Al. Game 4 Al. Anybody remember the game 4 against the Milwaukee Bucks a couple of years ago in the semifinals? Oh, I mean, it's one of Al Horford's few 30-point performances in his return to the Celtics since 2021, and it came in the NBA playoffs. But Al Horford, he was given that stare out tonight. But the Orlando Magic fans, I don't think they like Al Horford. They see the New Balance Al Horford crying shirts worn by the Orlando Magic fans, and this was caught on the broadcast during Game 3. So not tonight, but last game. I'm sure these shirts were in the arena again tonight, but this photo from last game, you see the crying Al Horford shirts from the Orlando Magic fans. But Al Horford, he got himself into, I don't know if you would call this a scuffle. It was a little back and forth between him, KCP, and Wendell Carter Jr. So essentially the whole situation, how it goes down here, is Wendell Carter hard fouls Derek White in transition on a Derek White layup attempt. And obviously, the two teams, they've been a little chippy in this series, period. Tatum comes over, and he's kind of shoving away KCP, shoving away the refs, and it kind of turns into a little skirmish. There's no pushing, there's no shoving. It's not like the Nuggets-Clippers fight the other night, but there was a little back and forth. There was some separation here, and obviously you see some yelling as Al Horford, he was yelling at Wendell Carter, pointing at him, saying something here, and then KCP comes into the picture and says something to Al Horford. You see KCP. He was initially in these last 2 frames, Al Horford was pointing at Wendell Carter, but KCP steps in front. And you can see the fingers pointed at Al Horford. But this is where the interviews, we give out interviews here. This is where the interviews are so important. Is I want to know what's said right at this moment to Al Horford, because Al Horford is very animated. He's pointing at Wendell Carter, pointing at KCP. KCP comes in, says something to Al Horford. You see 2 fingers pointed at Al here, and then Al Horford has this reaction. Just like, what was said between right here and this, right? Like, what was said to Al Horford within this whole progression? You have Al yelling at both of them, pointing at both of them. They point back at Al. And then what is said to Al Horford right here in order to bring up this reaction? Seriously, you go frame by frame on this. And it's just one of those interactions where I wish somebody in the press conference room, somebody has to ask the question of what KCP or Wendell Carter said to Al Horford in that situation. Because you see there, Al Horford, he was very animated, then all of a sudden goes to a face of like, what did you just call me? What did you just say? What was that? And it's just one of those moments. We don't have the audio. I'm sure. Hey, we do have the guy who leaks all the audio and the what's the page? I wish I could give this guy a shout out. I wish I knew. Legends, right? Legends. He always leaks the NBA audio, and it always looks fake, but then it's real. Can we get one on this situation right here? Because that little skirmish right there, something must have been said in order for Al Horford to react in the way in which he did right there. But Al Horford, this whole series, has been standing up for his team. Obviously, was knocked down in Game 3 and had something to say to KCP. Actually, that was Game 2, I should say. That was Game 2. That was at the Garden. Knocked down by KCP, had something to say. But every single game this series has been Al Horford. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Wendell Carter jumps into the mix tonight. Tatum was in there, and you see the whole time, and even Porzingis and Goga Bitadze, that little back and forth from earlier this season has spilled into this series a bit. But the series has been chippy so far, and Al Horford from every aspect of his game, from both the standpoint of Al Horford actually playing basketball to Al Horford standing up for his ball club in the little moments where things are going back and forth. Al Horford has been just revved up. He's been phenomenal in this series so far, and you can just tell he is ready for this moment. He does not care that he's going on 39 years old. This is his moment to win back-to-back titles and potentially close out his career with back-to-back titles, as he did starting his career at Florida, winning back-to-back national championships at Florida. This is Al Horford's moment. He understands that, and you can tell he's bringing that intensity out there. He's revved up every single night, and tonight 5 blocks on the night. I didn't think trading for Al Horford back in 2021 he could ever reach this level again with the Celtics, and yet we're seeing it now 4 years later with the team in a crucial playoff game on the road in Game 4 in a physical, grinded out series against the Orlando Magic. Al Horford, that muscle milk ad continues to this day to be the best. Whoever is working marketing at Muscle Milk, the best ad ever taken out by Muscle Milk, getting Al Horford to drink that, because you can see it's the fountain of youth. It's the fountain of youth. You just bathe yourself in the muscle milk.
I mean, you could see it. Look at his muscles. It's that muscle milk. I need to get me some of that muscle milk to be like Horford.
Sponsor us muscle milk. What said that?
Hey, got to. But one thing I do have to say is, I thought, going back to the refs too, I thought it was crazy that call that he stepped out of bounds when they're inbounding it. I thought that was crazy. And just I think this. I feel like now this might be a hot take. I don't know if you guys will agree with me on this, but I feel like, LeBron and other veterans in the league really get good calls. I feel like Al Horford doesn't get the best calls. I mean, come on, who expected that to be called? And then you get silly text from Horford just when he defends his team and stuff. I don't know. That might be a hot take for me, but I don't know.
Well, I'm gonna put down this take right now. That call on Horford was
atrocious.
No, it was 100% correct.
It was.
It was 100%.
It was.
But you're saying it's atrocious. He was definitely out of bounds. Like, if somebody did that against our team, it would be we would be. I mean, remember Nick Nurse in the bubble? He was standing over there like he was trying to receive a pass, and the pass went to him instead of whoever was in the corner, and then we all went crazy over that. I mean, that was legal. That was legal when that happened. It was like, oh, interference. That was legal. He was straight up stepping out of bounds. I mean, that's just about as illegal. I could see a little bit, like, if your foot's a little on the line, it's like, okay. But his whole foot was,
yeah.
I mean, you had the white outline and the black. It was in the black.
I didn't know you got a tech. That was new to me. I learned that tonight. I didn't know that was a technical foul. I thought it was just like a blown whistle and told him to get put, back it up and redo it. I didn't know it was a technical foul. You learn something new.
The reason we wouldn't know, though, about that being a technical foul is, to Griffin's point of, it's typically not called. But then again, it's typically not, like, guys aren't defending the inbound that hard. The last time I saw a call like that was the Houston Duke game, and the Houston center down the stretch. He didn't defend out of bounds, but he knocked the ball out of the Duke inbounder's hand, and that was called a tech. But then again, college basketball, it's different rules, so you can never tell on these kind of things. And also, college basketball, let's face it, a lot more mistakes, a lot more things you see in college basketball than you see in the NBA. That technical was, yes, a surprise on Al Horford, but just reading, this is also something I learned today. I don't know what happened here. Earlier, Rudy Gobert assess the flagrant one versus LeBron
Oh yeah,
for the back of the
you have
head.
yeah.
Well, no, I have to correct myself on this because I thought the rule for flagrants, I don't know where this was in my head. I felt like it came on screen at one point. I thought I read it in a rule book. I guess not. I thought the rule for flagrants was flagrant one means there was a potential for injury, but it was unintentional. Whereas flagrant two is a potential for injury, but the play was unintentional or was intentional. So the first
Wasn't
one, so they're both potential for injury, but one's intentional, one's unintentional. That's what I thought was the rule. And then I looked it up earlier, and I'm like, man, I thought the rule in which I had in my head was a lot more straightforward. Like, okay, here's an intentional act, here's an unintentional act. They're both potential for injury, but which one? You obviously Gobert, that was intentional earlier. But say Lou Dort on Ja Morant the other night, where he's kind of slipping back and Ja Morant falls over him. That's flagrant one because, there's a potential for injury and it was unintentional. So I thought the difference was in that, but I looked it up and it's basically, I believe it was a flagrant one is, it was, I feel
You're
like I
making
have
a play
to,
on the
I have
ball,
to
right?
search this.
Flagrant one is you're making a play on the ball, and flagrant two is there's no basketball action made, right?
I
That's what
have
I
to
thought
look this
in
up
my
again because I
thought
want to
there.
get the right definition for our viewership here to not confuse everybody in the audience over flagrant fouls because I feel like it's a term that we all hear every single game, and then we're like, wait a minute, what? Okay, so flagrant one is assessed for unnecessary contact, and a flagrant two is for unnecessary and excessive contact. That is what the actual rule book says. Which to me, I was looking up. I'm like, there's no intentional, unintentional. I swear I read this on screen at one point. I don't know what happened within the information train to my brain here. I don't know what, but that to me is a little vague. One is unnecessary and one is also unnecessary with excessive. Like, what is the boundary for excessive and not? Like earlier, I think Gobert, like that's, I feel like that's kind of excessive. Like you're on a box out and then you go boom to LeBron's head. Like, I don't know. I obviously my definition beforehand that would have fit that, but then in the actual definition of what flagrant fouls are, it's like, does it fit? Does it not? I don't know. It's like it's a little blurry. They make the rules a little
Well,
blurry. But that's where these flagrant fouls, I'll say, just in general in this series, it's like there haven't been any flagrant twos yet for any excessive contact, but we've been close. We've been close. I see. That's what I'm saying. I
we
don't know what is excessive. Have we seen it this series yet? Have we not? I just don't understand. That's where you learn something new in the NBA every day.
You do. And there's been some chippiness in the series, though. Even you look back at, I mean, Brown came into this game post game 3, and he essentially said, like, if we wanted to straight up square up and fight it off, we could fight it off. And like, there has, sorry.
No, keep going. Keep going.
All right.
We're gonna
So
flow
there
into
has
this.
been, okay, there has been some, there's been some chippiness, and you look at, because all right, so like there's two plays for me in this series. KCP's foul, really, actually not even that. Cole Anthony's foul on Jaylen Brown. That's a flagrant two in my head. All right. It was a clear unbasketball play, dragging him to the ground. I do think there needs to be separation when there's playoffs, right? But even in this series, there's been a lot of chippiness. I mean, what a flag was there? There wasn't a flagrant tonight. Almost on Wendell Carter driving. Great call, though, mind you. I did not think that was a flagrant foul. White drives the lane. Carter gives him a little shove. He hits the deck. Just a hard foul. But I mean, what? We've had 3 flagrant fouls in 4 games. I mean, that's almost got to be a record almost. No? I mean, in Brown's comments, I mean, Brown's coming in saying, let's duke it out like that. Let's straight up. We want to fight to see you guys in round 2. Let's go. Let's see who fights and gets to round 2.
Well, we have Brown's comments queued up right here. I mean, Jaylen Brown, this was after game 3. So Jaylen Brown, to our guy Justin Turpin, I don't know. There might be a fight breakout or something. When I read Jaylen, well, I actually watched this interview, and when I watched it, what Jaylen Brown was saying, I mean, he was to a level of frustration that I didn't think the Celtics would get to in the first round against the Magic, but it definitely shows what this Magic team has done to the Celtics and some of their mentality in this series. But Jaylen Brown here, responding to the physicality without crossing the line, I don't know. There might be a fight breakout or something. It's starting to feel like it's not even basketball, and the refs aren't controlling their environment. If we want to fight it, we can do that. We can fight to see who goes to the second round, is what Jaylen Brown said. And then Cole Anthony, he had a little bit of a response to this today at practice. As you see, both there, see CLNS had this tweet out. Cole Anthony on Jaylen Brown's fight comments. I'm gonna keep it a buck, gang. I don't even really care. We all here to hoop. And he gave him a little shrug, shrugged him off, doesn't care. Cole Anthony, though, I'll say this: Cole Anthony, hardly any minutes
Not doing much
tonight for Cole
hooping.
Anthony. Hardly any minutes because he's the one Magic player in which the Celtics want to hunt. But there is a little back and forth between Brown and Cole Anthony. And this series, I'm excited for not only the rest of this series, or I mean, there's might be only one more game, but the future of this Celtics Magic rivalry, because this series has been just physical. It's been grinded out, as we've said a million times. But there have been some real rivalries formed in this series. You see that little back and forth right there, Jaylen Brown, Cole Anthony, and then outside of that, KCP. I don't know what KCP is saying out there on the floor, but every single Celtic seems to hate KCP, and this Al Horford KCP beef is just something that I didn't expect coming into this series. I thought KCP was like this respected veteran, kind of like Mike Conley, and it's like, no, he's a shit disturber, I guess KCP is. That's what Al Horford, at least that's what the reaction is from all the Celtics. Tatum is in there getting in the scrum. Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, obviously, and there's KCP, Wendell Carter, Cole Anthony. They're all getting after it, and it's just been a very, very back and forth chippy series, and it's been frustrating from the Celtics perspective because they're just not getting the buckets in which they're used to getting. They're not creating the shots in which they're used to creating, and it's definitely causing some frustration within this series. And you see it come out in quotes like that from Jaylen Brown, where he just goes, "Well, we're gonna fight this series out," and then you see it come out where with Al Horford and his interactions on floor. This series, it's going to be one we look back at. I believe we're going to finish it off in 5 here at the Garden. I'm going to say that. But regardless of how many games it's gone, I think we'll look back at it as a classic, tough series in which the Celtics had to go through. And of course, if the Celtics do end up winning the title this year, this series will it'll only throw more to the legacy of the Celtics, because last year everybody looked at the Celtics playoff run and went, cakewalk. Yeah, you didn't even face the Knicks. You faced the Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton, no Donovan Mitchell, no Jimmy Butler, with the Heat, and then with the Cavs with Mitchell. And then in the finals, you had to face the 5 seed Mavericks, and everybody's dogging on that playoff run. Well, the Celtics win the title this year. This series alone, the first round series against the Magic, I mean, nobody can say anything about, oh, the Celtics, they played the Magic round. I was like, this has been a tough series for the season, and I've already talked about it this post game, but if a couple of moments within these games go a little bit differently, and the ball bounces towards the Magic more than the Celtics, we're looking at a Magic 3-1 lead, or a 2-2 series tied up right now, and that's a whole different ball game than what we're looking at the Celtics owning the opportunity to go ahead and win in game 5 and close out this series on the home floor. It seems like this series it's only been a week. It's been exactly 1 week since this series started. But it feels like we've been in this forever, and yet we're very close to the end already.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I want to say on that Cole Anthony statement, that's crazy, gang. Like, come on. Oh, what's up, gang? Like, what? No, but in all seriousness, though, I think I'm ready to move on from this series. I'm ready for the next matchup. It's been tough nail biter games like all series long. And it's fun in a sense. No, I love intense playoff basketball because I feel like it catches my eye more than if the Celtics were blowing them out, because in a blowout game, I'm going to be like, oh, all right, there's another 3. All right, there's another 3. But I'm actually on the edge of my seat. All right, get a stop and go get a bucket. Like I'm actually more into the game. So it's been fun basketball to watch, but I don't know. I'm what about you guys? You guys ready to get it in 5 games?
Well, here's the entertainment portion of the series. I mean, certainly right now, this series is a way better series to watch than last year's Heat Celtics series. And that last year's Heat Celtics series, in game 2, yes, the Heat overcame the Celtics, but the rest of the games, they weren't that close. The Celtics they handled the rest of the series. And in this series, it feels like yes, the Celtics have the advantage. You look at the lead tracker and you look at some of the numbers and you understand, okay, well, the Celtics are the ones controlling the scoring margins, and the Magic are typically the ones trying to come back within these games. But it's been close. It was 91-91 down the stretch, and it definitely felt like for a moment there in the fourth quarter, the Magic, if they pull out this run like they did the other night, it's going to be 2-2. And that's a whole different series than a 3-1 series of what we're facing right now. And even with the 3-1 series, I mean, it's been competitive. Each and every game has been competitive. You're seeing the Magic, they're holding the Celtics to under 110 points. Meanwhile, the Celtics, they're holding the Magic to under 100 points in this series. And both teams are just slugging it out to the point where this has been an entertaining series. Not for the, for the offensive gurus out there, this series has been just a mess because Orlando can't score. They have no creators. They have no creativity on offense. The Celtics, they've been stuck in the mud. They have not created their typical 3-point shots. They've been held at bay. When it comes to the Orlando Magic emitting physicality onto the Celtics and the Celtics not being able to face it in the most efficient manners on the floor, the offense in this series has just not been there. But the fact it's been so physical, we've had so many interactions on court so far, and just you can tell the competitiveness out of both teams is coming out in this setting because you can see the Celtics are clearly frustrated with what they're dealing with in the Magic, and the Magic are just not going to back down because Jamal Mosley, that culture, in both cultures, the Celtics and the Magic, they're designed to go at each other in this physical way and in this way in which there's going to be some ferocity at both teams directed towards each other. And so far in the series, I agree, Griffin. It's made for some pretty entertaining basketball, even though for everybody who loves points, everybody who loves three-pointers, everybody who loves offense, this series has been probably the most ugly series for all of that in the first round. Maybe the Warriors Rockets, but even there, you have Steph Curry last night. I mean, he just goes nuts and puts it on the Rockets. This series, yes, we've had 37 tonight from Tatum, 36 the other night from Tatum, 36 for Brown in game 2, but all these games, I mean, the Tatum performances in the last 2 games, 37, 36, but they have it's mainly because of the volume with Tatum. 25 shots tonight, gets 37 up on the board. Doesn't always look comfortable. He isn't efficient from the floor right now. I love the aggressiveness from Tatum, okay? You can't take that away from him because that's what we always want to see from Tatum. But just in terms of scoring the ball easily and making plays for others, that's something we just have not seen out of Brown and Tatum this series, and it's all due to the Magic defense. And throughout the playoffs, we just haven't seen other series be this physical and this tough on superstars. We just haven't.
Yeah, we have not. And I will say this game 4 was a big win because it sets up a potential game 5 closeout. Now, guys, also something to watch moving forward for Tuesday's show. The Celtics tip off at 8:30 on NBA TV. The New York Knicks play their game 5 back at the Madison Square Garden at 7:30. So that Tuesday could potentially be a big night for the Celtics as they look to advance, and their potential opponent also up 3-1 in the New York Knicks. They also have an opportunity to close their series out against the Detroit Pistons with a win tonight, controversial win, 1-point win. So again, that is to keep an eye on. I do want to say one more thing though here tonight in regards of this matchup here and tonight, and especially Jason Tatum. I was impressed and pleased with the play of not only Brown but and Tatum, because this is really, and we talked about this, Seamus, on the second portion of the postgame show, this is the most uncomfortable we have seen these two superstars in a long, long time. And I do want to credit their ability to kind of I don't want to say their ability to still produce, because there is still a production that is at the forefront of what they're doing tonight. Tatum found different ways, and same with Brown. This is really Brown's first real inefficient game of the series. He was actually came in shooting 53% from the floor through the first 3. Their ability to adapt to the uncomfortable defensive pressure from Orlando, because I think that's the narrative of this series is, wow, Orlando's defense is legit. Like, this is really impressive. So I do want to give a shout out to Brown and Tatum, because this is the hardest series they've had to play in a long, long time, despite it being the first round against the 7 seed. And I do think for the most part, they've done a pretty good job.
100%. I mean, they're kind of the other version of Boncaro and Franz Wagner, because you could say the same on the other side with those two, how the Celtics defense has been, I want to say, just as good as the Magic in the series. I mean, they've been pretty high level as well. You see, I mean, the scoring numbers for the Magic and some of the role player production on the Magic is just non-existent. It's absolutely non-existent for the Magic, and it's mostly been Boncaro and Franz Wagner, and they've been putting up the volume. But that's kind of the same with the Celtics. As you see Tatum with the volume tonight, but it's been a little more equally distributed throughout this series. Definitely from a team's perspective, the Celtics team perspective. And tonight, you see Tatum with the volume. Brown has more himself in an inefficient game. But I'll say they're definitely the superstars, Brown and Tatum. Where on one hand, I go, okay, I don't want to see ISO ball down the stretch 24/7 and bad mid-range shots and bad huck-up shots. I don't want to see that out of this team. But we talked with Ryan the other day on this program. We talked a lot about the Magic, but we also talked about analytics at the beginning. And he was mentioning how some players within the league, particularly himself, he was talking about Kawhi and Kevin Durant. Those two players, their contested mid-range jumpers come at the same efficiency as somebody taking a layup, another player taking a layup literally at the rim. Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard can hit the mid-range shot contested at the same clip somebody else can make a layup at. And that's Brown and Tatum also. Not quite. I'm going to say this. Tatum and Brown aren't quite to that level of efficiency when Kawhi and Kevin Durant within their careers, but Brown and Tatum are still efficient enough to the point where if you give them the ball, they can create for themselves good looks. And even not only good looks, they can create for themselves in tough situations and get themselves a bucket. And we've seen Brown and Tatum do that this series because they've had the biggest burdens by far of any Celtics player. And that's why I talk about a player like Derek White being so big in the series is when you're relying so heavily on Brown and Tatum to create a lot of your offense. And Porzingis, he's been a wreck in this series up until tonight. And I would say one quarter tonight, he was great. One quarter. The rest was back and forth for Porzingis, I would say, for the rest of the night. But otherwise, he's been a train wreck in this series. The Celtics are relying on Tatum and Brown to come up with some of their points, or a lot of their points. But that's why a guy like Derek White is so big, is he slithers in there and he comes up with all the points in the little margins, where Brown and Tatum, they can't take over the whole game. But if Derek White can come in, hit a couple of three-point shots, and make a couple of twos in which are available to him off of cuts, off of drives to the rim, when things are hectic on defense for the Magic, whether it's in transition or in the half court, when Derek White can put in some of those little points, it takes a lot of pressure off of Brown and Tatum to take over the whole game. But regardless, that's what they've been doing in some of these contests. Is Brown, you saw in game 2, 36 points. He was a huge factor in the Celtics pulling out that game without Jason Tatum on the floor. And then again, these last 2 games, you saw Tatum. He's been a player this series where I said it earlier on in the program, but the Magic are taking away the three-point shot, and Tatum, he's left with these one-on-one opportunities, and so is Brown. And the Magic feel comfortable with the physicality in which they have, the size in which they have, to go up against Brown and Tatum and allow them to go one-on-one against some of these players. And those players such as Wendell Carter Jr., we have Jonathan Isaac out there, Boncaro, Franz Wagner, they're all making things tough. KCP, the evidence switches. It's always Gary Harris and Corey Joseph, but even those two guys have gotten after it on the defensive end of the floor. Anthony Black, for a guard as well, that's one of his main attributes is on defense. He has more of a shooting problem. That's where his minutes are questionable. It's not on the defensive end of the floor for Anthony Black. But we see the defenders in which the Magic have, all of them can defend Tatum and Brown on ball pretty well. And Tatum and Brown, they've had the one-on-one scenarios against those guys, and the Celtics go, well, we're going to take advantage of those, and we're going to send you downhill. We're going to send Tatum downhill towards the basket. We're going to send Brown downhill towards the basket, and even Tatum and Brown, period. They're going to be able to create their own shots off the opportunities in which they get with the ball going one-on-one against the Magic defense. I will say some of the shots I'm not exactly fond of out of Tatum and Brown. They're a little overconfident at times. There are a lot of step back opportunities, and we've known Tatum. Even though the step back looks good and when it goes in, we all go crazy. Not the most efficient shot in the world whatsoever. I mean, defenses live with the Tatum step back. Obviously, there are some crucial moments in which Tatum can hit that shot, and it's a timely shot for the offense. But just in general, the entire offense moving along within a game, those shots are not always efficient for Tatum, and those are some of the shots in which he elects to throw up every once in a while. But regardless, Tatum and Brown, they've drove into the physicality of this series, and they are producing. That's something that's easily seen when it comes to their superstardom in the NBA. As young guys, they would not be able to handle this. I mean, you think about Tatum in 2020 or Brown at that same time period. The players in which they were back then would not be able to handle this level of
100%.
pressure in which they're handling right now. And I think that's the most impressive aspect of all this is there's a ton of pressure. There's a ton of physicality on Brown and Tatum. And the other team, the Orlando Magic, they're allowing Brown and Tatum to go one-on-one in these tough matchups. Celtics are taking advantage of that. And Brown and Tatum, it's not always the most efficient look, but they are hitting some of their tough shots and they are getting downhill, putting their shoulder into the defense and getting themselves to the free throw line, getting some of the looks they want at the rim. And that's the most impressive part about their superstardom is they don't even play that well. And you still see, I mean, Jason Tatum didn't win player of the spotlight tonight, yet put up 37 and double-digit rebounds. Brown had a double-double himself. And that's what superstars do is they don't always have great games, but they're always there to affect the game in such a big way, regardless, especially when it comes to the stat sheet. You see Jokic. Jokic had 21 rebounds last night at 30 points, and at the end of the game was going, what? When did that happen?
Right.
Jokic, he's dominating the whole game. You realize that, but just the numbers he puts up at the end, you're going, what? This doesn't even compute. Same thing with Brown or Tatum sometimes. It doesn't always feel like they're putting up those level of performances, but then at the end of the night, you go, oh, Tatum, casual 37 on the night, or the other night, oh, Brown, casual 36. Brown's was a little more physical and a little more audacious, I will say, the other night. But we will have those nights in which both players, they're not always up to their typical standards. I would say tonight was like that. And they're still affecting the game in multiple ways and still putting up numbers on the board in which the Celtics need at the end of the night. So, yes, I would say Brown and Tatum, they've been impressive in this series within their ability to do that. However, this series, regardless, has been just absolutely tough on those guys, and they, like any other player, they've succumbed to it at moments, and it's why the Celtics at this point in time have one more game left. I'll say that outside of the Orlando Magic's game plan. Well, the Orlando Magic game plan, I will say, is the reason in which Brown and Tatum, they've you know in this series. They've faced that physicality and faced some of what is backlashed against them. But overall, I would say both of those guys in this series, it could be something good for them later on in time from the standpoint of I don't know if Brown or Tatum they're going to see another team this physical unless you see a team like the Timberwolves or a team like the Thunder in the finals. I think the rest of the teams you're going to see in the East, whether it's the Pistons, the Knicks, the Pacers, the Cavaliers, they don't have this level of physicality. They're not going to play the Celtics in this way. And if they do, Brown and Tatum or Tatum, both of them, they're just going to eat them up. And that's the good silver lining of facing the Magic in the first round. On one hand, you could say yes, they're beating up the Celtics right now, and they're being physical, and they're kind of they're. I don't want to say the Magic. They're not the reason as to why we have injury concerns with the Celtics. Just they're not the primary reason. We do just have guys who sometimes are injury prone and get injured, and freak things happen. But at the same time, we've seen the Celtics. They've been injured in this series a couple times on hits and knocks to the floor, as we saw with Tatum and Brown and Porzingis. But later on in time in this playoff series, it could still be a good thing that the Celtics were tested in round one so that they're ready to go. You could look at that on both spectrums and go, oh, it's bad for the team because they're getting beat up, or you could look at it going, oh, well, this is good for the team because they're getting beat up early on, and when they get beat up later, they'll be prepared for it, and they'll have already been through that at that point in time. Tatum or Brown, they spearhead that conversation because everything that the Magic are trying to do, it centers on Brown and Tatum and what the ball or what Brown and Tatum are doing with the ball in their hands within the series.
Yeah, without a doubt. And again, the Celtics have an opportunity to close out the series in Game 5. And I'm praying, and I think we're all predicting that they do so. That this is a 5-game series, and they do handle business. Again, that game is Tuesday at 8:30. A late tip-off. The New York Knicks, again, I'm going to stress this. Pay attention to that game. 7:30 tip-off against the Detroit Pistons. I got a feeling Detroit is not – same with Orlando, but Detroit's not going to look to fold there. So we are big Detroit Piston fans because, again, if you can get some more time with rest, that would be huge. But, again, 7:30 tip-off or 8:30 tip-off from the Boston front.
And a couple more things here before we close out. So this was after Game 3. So this is not applicable anymore, but it was after Game 3, and it just kind of shows some of the weird struggles in which Celtics have seen in Orlando this season. So 2024-25 Celtics, again from Sean Grandy here, on the road at Orlando this season. They were 0-3 after Game 3 with a minus 8.67 scoring margin. Everywhere else, the Celtics were 33-6 with a plus 10.5 scoring margin there. And that was after Game 3. So these numbers are a little bit different now. The Celtics now 1-3 in Orlando, and the scoring margin is a little different. But up to that point, the Celtics 5 straight losses in Orlando coming into tonight. Finally, the Celtics get that what do you call it? Get that off their back and actually win Game 4. And they win a game in Orlando. Just one more last tweet here from John Corrales retweeting Justin Turpin. The first half was played in 58 minutes. And so essentially said this game's flying by after the Celtics played their longest game of the season, including overtime games, in Game 3, lasting 2 hours and 46 minutes. So Game 3, the longest game of the season, 2 hours and 46 minutes. Well, tonight, 58 minutes in the first half. However, the third quarter, it took 51 minutes alone. That, when you consider how much time is actually in the third quarter, 12 minutes. 12 minutes, folks. 12 minutes. All right, 12 minutes. That's it. That's what's on the clock in the third quarter. Took 51 minutes tonight. 51 minutes. That is absolutely ridiculous. Just had to throw that stat out there because it's probably one of basketball's biggest problems is the stoppage in play. You say the Lakers game earlier, the Lakers game, the Wolves game, nobody saw that. Big stoppage in play at the end, big review. And, I'm not a Lakers sympathizer, but at the same time, there are plays that are so bang, bang, and then all of a sudden you're slowing things down for 30 minutes and you're looking at it frame by frame from every angle, and then all of a sudden an angle that you never knew existed comes up, and just a bunch of hoopla in the NBA when it comes to reviews and stoppages. I'm pretty sure tonight's 51-minute third quarter was caused by free throw attempts. I will say there are a lot of free throw attempts in this one. We've seen the Celtics. They've been getting to the line a lot in this series, and that's another thing that's just benefiting the Celtics, period, is they themselves are getting to the line a lot. Orlando, they have the second highest free throw rate in the league, free throw attempt rate, I'll say. The Magic do on the season. Tonight, the Magic, 20 free throws. The Celtics themselves, in terms of free throw attempts, 32. So the Celtics, it's not even about taking away the Magic free throw attempts. It's about the Celtics shooting more free throw attempts than the Magic this series. But I'm quite certain when you combine for 52 free throw attempts in a game, that's going to extend the third quarter in the way it did tonight. I'll say some of the chippiness too. Some of the reviews, I think that Wendell Carter, the Al Horford, KCP thing happened in the third quarter as well in this game. But some of the flow of these playoff games, take out some of the stoppages. I'll say that NBA that talk about the ratings issue. There's a million things that go into the ratings issue at the end of the day, but the stoppages, I went back and forth on this at the beginning of the season thinking, all right, are stoppages, does it really matter? Like, people are still tuned in at the end of games. They still matter to the casual fan, and casual fans, they don't tune in enough to notice the stoppages. And I don't know if they're a big thing, but when you take 51 minutes to play a 12-minute quarter, and down the stretch you take half an hour to play the last minute of a game, it gets a little rough. It gets a little rough. And unfortunately, from the Celtics and Magic perspective tonight, they fell victim to that in game 3, as you saw, the 2 hours and 46 minutes. But they also, in game 4, fall victim to that in the third quarter, which took 51 minutes tonight. We got to get a Dick Life stat on this. How long, like, I'm sure it's got to be some kind of loophole ridiculousness. Like, how long is a quarter actually taken before? Like, the longest quarter ever played was like 2 hours, an hour and a half. Like, I'm sure there's some kind of loophole saying, oh, well, this team, they never finished the third quarter, so therefore it's still going on, and blah, 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 blah. I'm sure some of that NBA hoopla history exists out there, but I need a stat on that. 51 minutes seems like a long time for 12 minutes. I'm almost like, is John Corrales joking, or is that an actual stat? I mean, seriously.
I mean, the game, if that was every quarter, it'd take what, almost 4 hours. So I mean, I think everybody's just looking to get this series over with, between the chippiness, the fouls, and quite frankly, just the lack of offensive play in this series has just been brutal. Guys, the Celtics will have the opportunity to get this series over with back in Boston for a game 5. Again, that is Tuesday at 8:30. I'm going to say it one more time. Pay attention to that Pistons-Knicks games. That will be at 7:30 on TNT. You can catch the Boston game on NBA TV or NBC Sports Boston, and the last NBC Sports Boston potentially broadcast of the year, guys. After the final buzzer sounds for game 5, come right back here. The Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube channel will have you covered for the CTW post-game show. Guys, as for tonight, the Boston Celtics take a commanding 3-1 series lead over the Orlando Magic with a 107-98 victory in Orlando at the Kia Center. Derek White was your SeatGeek player spotlight tonight. 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists for D. White. Guys, you know the drill. I'm not going to play that song. Don't worry. That's going to be for Tuesday night, Griffin. We're going to rock out, though. Guys, again, anytime the Celtics can get a playoff win, it's a good night. One step closer to Banner 19, guys. You know the drill. Until next time, see you Tuesday night, and go Celtics.